In a world where clothing seems to be getting worse, nothing captures our attention better than brands being able to say, here's a way we've made clothing better. We love a technologically advanced fashion trend, from the inclusion of solar panels and headphone controls in the early 2000s, then the futuristic multi-pocket arrays, features like jacket slings, fetishization of Gore-Tex in the mid-2010s. And in 2020, the most annoying person you know was filming themselves wearing Arc'teryx in the shower. I would never do that, obviously. Sadly, fashion has moved on from cyberpunk and hiker cosplay, so I guess I better take this off. Now, obviously there's nothing wrong with these aesthetics. Frequently they inform my own style. But if performance fashion in this sense isn't on trend anymore, then what is? This is Artemis here. Let's talk about it. I have to state the obvious here that even if gorpcore as an aesthetic isn't at its peak popularity, the idea of objectively better clothing is never going to go away because of it being a literal necessity. If it's pouring with rain, you're not going to be like, actually Arc'teryx isn't cool anymore, so I'm going to put on my jeans and a wool sweater. Similarly, there will always be people engaging in hobbies which necessitate high performance clothing who also want to look good while they're doing that thing. Whether that be running, bouldering, snowboarding, clothing which is functionality only with no interest in aesthetics, well, that's just not going to cut it. Even if the brands creating that stuff don't occupy much space in the fashion zeitgeist. But you probably don't want to see an entire video of me pulling up graphs of outdoor gear market value. So instead, we're going to think, where does this performance fashion stuff occupy space in the fashion zeitgeist? And if technical fashion, performance fashion, techwear, whatever you want to call it, appeals to you, well, what direction is it going in? There are two possible answers to this. One is the addition of technical design to classic clothing. The other is applying experimental fashion design to technical clothing. And we're going to have a look at both. Part one, quiet outdoors, but for real this time. At the beginning of the year, there was some buzz around this quiet outdoor concept, and we covered it in some detail as to whether there's any aesthetic merit behind the idea and what that actually looks like. It's something that a lot of people seem to be quite annoyed at, but to give you the short version, it's like a combination of quiet luxury, which focuses on those if you know brands which value craftsmanship and material luxury over expensive branding, and gorpcore, which values performance materials and the aesthetics of outdoor activities. The fusion, therefore, is a sort of gorpcore 2, where you're swapping out these now well-known performance material logos for something only a real enthusiast would recognize, or blending performance and non-performance clothing in an acknowledgement that you're probably not going to be using this stuff for real rigorous activity, so why dress like you're in hiker cosplay? You just don't need a full Gore-Tex suit for the 5-minute trip to Starbucks. And with streetwear leaning more towards smarter looks, by non-performance clothing we're talking sweaters, shirts, smarter pants, loafers, all those things that we might associate with quiet luxury. While many have rightfully hated on the term quiet outdoors for being eye-meltingly cringe, conceptually I do think it relates to an idea that we can engage with performance fashion in a relevant way for fall-winter season. I mean, Loro Piana, the poster child of quiet luxury, subject of 1,000 TikToks, released the Into the Wild collection earlier this year, styled in a very gorpcore way, but also using more natural fabrics, removing the typical branding, and with plenty of individual pieces that sit between lifestyle and performance. Could there be a bigger endorsement of the quiet outdoors idea conceptually? Okay, normal people are not going to be dropping 6,000 euros on a vest, so it doesn't exactly prove that the formal sartorial clothing and performance fashion link is popular or a trend. A more relevant example is the latest Aimé Leon Dore collection. They've been pretty big in streetwear the last couple of years with their brand of Heritage Americana, and they released a 3-layer Gore-Tex fabric jacket, but instead of using high-performance brand logos, had this cursive script instead that's reminiscent more of a waxed cotton jacket than some 3-layer plastic. It's almost obscuring the high-tech nylon performance, but still giving the user its benefit. Very demure, very mindful. And this jacket, I think, sold out on release day. For ALD at least, there is demand for this technical performance clothing in this new context. A little smarter, a little more integrated with classic menswear, a little more appropriate for use with some of those other styles and fabrics, not just head-to-toe performance clothing. I also want to turn your attention over to footwear here for further evidence of this. By now, everyone seems to have talked about the death of sneaker culture. Sneakers are over, it's all loafers and boots meta now. The sneaker replacement is a more formal choice, and one which evokes this sense of craftsmanship you don't really find with a sneaker. This is absolutely a conscious rejection of hype culture. If people are spending $1,000, they want to see that in a greedy boot that's handmade using beautiful leather and not a mass-produced Nike product that Travis Scott supposedly gave a thumbs up on. Most would rather be buying something like this, your kind of $100, $150 Adidas Samba or one of the many variants. And yes, I carried a shoe in my bag the entire time, just for those 2 seconds. This trend towards boots and loafers has also created another category, the crossover sneaker, which in my eyes is absolutely linked to people's demand for comfort and performance, plus smarter looks. As a result, we have all kinds of unholy fusions: Salomon and MM6 mules, New Balance loafers, Puma and Palomo loafers, or the Asics and GmbH gel chapel with a weird dress shoe kind of energy about it. For women, the Mary Jane has been central to this idea, with all kinds of examples from Vans, Salomon, Asics and Cecile Benson, Kiko Kostadinov and Marc Jacobs, Doc Martens, Simone Rocker. So many examples at all price points. There's no doubt people at some level are interested in the aesthetics of a smart shoe, but the comfort, the performance, the looks of a more traditional sneaker. If you've come across Rower, that's pretty much exactly what their footwear is about, with multiple models fitting into this idea, and represents a new direction of performance-driven fashion that seems to be getting more and more popular. I'm going to put you onto a lesser-known sneaker brand here called Demon, which I came across a couple of years ago at Luca Hammer's studio, which reimagined hiking boots and sneakers into fashion-forward silhouettes in a way that I think is extremely cool. Even forgetting this more literal crossover idea, I still see the heritage hiking boot as something that fits into this category and seems to be getting picked up more and more. Think brown leather and red laces produced by brands like Dana, DMA, which evoke a sense of preparedness and technically suitable for outdoor use, but just as at home in a more lifestyle context, worn with some raw denim and a sweater or something. So this different level or this different type of performance is working well with the way that people seem to want to dress at the moment. And that's something that would be a lot more difficult with a very futuristic technical performance shoe like a Salomon XT6. All that we've talked about really centers on this idea of performance sneaking its way into current fashion trends, both because people need that performance or because it represents a fresh take on older ideas like gorpcore or quiet luxury, or just this idea of smarter clothing in streetwear. But what's on the other side of this coin, and it's the side that I personally find more interesting, rather than performance elements in fashion, how do we bring fashion elements into performance clothing? This is higher than it looks. I think part of the reason Techwear and to some extent gorpcore has a lost interest for some people is this misconception that performance has to come first. And if you want to be a Techwear MF looking cool, well, that's not a good enough reason. You have to also justify why you have all the stuff on that you have. Now, I don't think that's true. And in fact, I think the future of Techwear depends on a greater level of flexibility between this link of performance and aesthetics. And boy, oh boy, do I have the perfect brand to show you, which I think resonates with this idea. Time to go home so I can show you. Post-archive faction. I've mentioned them in a few videos now, and they're picking up more mainstream popularity, and I think there's a core reason at play. They start with performance fabrics, construction, convention, and then experiment aesthetically using performance elements. The zip to post-archive faction is not just about function, it's not just about doing something up, but about the ability to change a garment from one look to another. This is an idea absolutely impossible for the design language of conventional performance brands. Can you imagine what people would think if Arc'teryx just decided to stick a zip on the side of one of their jackets just because they thought it looked cool? The Arc'teryx subreddit would have an absolute meltdown. And I think I'm going to set this shot up a little bit more properly now. This unlocks an absolute wealth of different directions, and why I think Post-Archive Faction is a pretty inspirational brand right now. And I'm very excited to show off some of these pieces because I have wanted some stuff from this brand for years. So if you're not familiar with the brand, their collections are organized in a way that I think is very cool. Every item is categorized as either right, center, or left. Right pieces are more conservative, uniform-like, and affordable, often bringing in subtly unconventional elements. Center brings the unconventional closer to the forefront, with overt changes to standard performance clothing. Left is progressive and experimental, with typically a small number of items made in very low quantities as examples of what the brand is capable of. An unrestricted expression of the post-Archive Faction worldview. This allows you to engage with the brand in a way that feels more authentic to you, whether you want something that's rooted in convention, or something that is very experimental that'll make you stand out. And it allows post-archive faction to balance creativity and commerciality in a very upfront and authentic way. Now let me show you exactly what you can expect. First, I picked up this 6.0 Right jacket on sale over the summer. Cut like a slim fit conventional piece of outerwear, but rendered in this really cool matcha colorway that's pretty unusual for outdoor brands, particularly being a two-tone color thanks to the contrast material panels on the sleeves and sides, which allow greater movement. Already, this is using a performance feature to inform the aesthetics, but if you turn this thing around, look on the back, you'll find some pretty unusual details here. Firstly, a back-mounted waist bag, an inversion of the conventional pocket, resulting in this material strip emerging from the sidewalls. You'll also find this big vertical vent zip, which yes, has a functional benefit of allowing you to cool down and allowing some ease of movement, but also physically allows the jacket to deform and reveal your base layer. In both cases, performance ideas used unconventionally give access to different aesthetics that you might not find otherwise. After I picked this up, post-archive faction were generous enough to send a couple of items from their new collection, which I'm even more excited to show off. So let's take a look at those and we can understand the kinds of differences you might expect from right, center, and left. The center 7.0 technical jacket, you can immediately see this is cut in quite an unusual way. These sleeves and body panels here, this is very much not standard, but the central complication should be obvious, the multi-track zip running down one side of the jacket all the way up to the hood. Yeah, sure, you can undo the bottom to allow some space there in a similar way to a double zip, but more importantly, it allows you to mess with the shape and form in a way not possible with a performance product. Getting creative with either protective looks or having it almost blown apart. You can even take this panel out completely if you want to. I can't help but compare it to the acronym J117, which looks similar, but in their case, they're justifying it as, oh, well, you know, we've got a pocket here at the front, we've got the sunglasses holder, you can split it apart, you can turn it into a sling. For post-archive faction, we just put it there because it looks cool and you can mess about with it and do some weird stuff if you want to. That, of course, is sacrilegious to a performance-only MF. But if you're taking a slightly more flexible mindset here, appreciating the fact that we've got a performance-focused detail that is driving something aesthetically, I think you can still appreciate this kind of idea. They're using performance to create aesthetics that other brands can't. The downside, of course, this is less performative than your conventional seam-taped Arc'teryx jacket, and some configurations don't work all that well. The hood especially, I would have really liked some extra room there. But look, it's certainly good enough. It has the water-resistant credentials for the casual urban use that 99% of buyers of this kind of product are going to want it for. Let's not kid ourselves, you ain't climbing Kilimanjaro in this thing, and I don't really think that matters. It's gonna do what you want it to do, it's gonna look cool and unique while you're doing it. And that brings us on very nicely to the left jacket. Remember when I said left was all about being the most experimental? Well, take a look at this. For 7.0, the theme is all about deforming this shell fabric, and as you can see, they've added all of these pleats all over this jacket to form this kind of a rushed effect going across both the body and the sleeves. The result is an absolutely insane, twisting, blurred form which utterly defies what a performance jacket should be, but that technical fabric holds its shape like a conventional garment wouldn't. No doubt this pushes what is possible with this type of clothing. I cannot overstate how cool the silhouette on the body looks. It almost has this cinched waist, it's got super extended shoulders as well. It's completely changing how this kind of jacket would normally fit on someone. There's drama, there's energy here, which I really love, and it speaks to post-archive faction's expertise with this kind of construction and material. I own like 60, 70 jackets at this point, and I can absolutely say that this post-archive faction one is unique, and I mean that in a positive way. But that doesn't mean I think you should buy this jacket. The experimental form extends to the sleeves, which are so long that it's kind of difficult to work with them. I feel like I need some hair ties or something to make them grip my wrists rather than just flopping down and making my hands unusable. And as I mentioned, the left pieces by their experimental nature are produced in low quantities. They are very expensive for that reason. Left to me is appreciate the artistry, enjoy them in videos, images, content. Hey, stuff like this that we're doing right here. But when it comes to your own fashion journey or style, I think it's those center and right pieces which are going to be more viable purchases for probably 99% of people. You're still getting that experimentation, you're still being part of the post-archive faction worldview, but that stuff is rendered in more wearable ways. And in fact, that's where I have to shout out one other item, which are these, the 7.0 right pants. And I didn't necessarily expect these to be a hit, but You know what? I think they're really nice. They fit kind of like a straight-legged jean, but the vertical pockets, the cool woven nylon which feels really rugged, and these diamond pattern darts at the knee giving them a subtle shape change and a great freedom of movement. This is a perfect example of how post-archive fashion can get the basics right whilst injecting some level of experimentation in a way that's pretty tasteful. I can honestly see myself wearing these in any number of scenarios, and as you can see, the two right pieces together work great as a uniform-like fit which blend performance and aesthetics. There are definitely other brands engaging with this idea of fusing performance and aesthetics in a new fashion-forward direction. JLAL is one that we've covered a few times on the channel before. I've got some of their pieces. But to me, post-archive fashion is the purest, the rawest exploration of this ethos, and definitely something that I would like to see other brands adopting. In fact, even outside performance fashion, the recent Levi's and Kiko Kostaninov collaboration caught my eye recently. He used material darts over the knee that you might expect with a performance pant, but has turned them into an aesthetic detail. I thought that idea was really cool. Clearly other people did too. They sold out instantly. So keep an eye out for designers using performance to drive aesthetics. I think it's absolutely something that's going to continue showing up. So do you think you could incorporate these crossover ideas into performance and fashion, or vice versa? Or do you sit firmly on one side or the other? Either way, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. That makes a massive difference to me. And thanks so much for checking it out and watching it. I'll be back very soon with another one. Oh, I'm actually doing a video. Yeah, I'm talking to camera. Oh, you're talking? Yeah. It's all good. No worries.